It's still Sunday, January 25th. It's around 4 o'clock right now. I said I would do two songs today. I did the first song around 11. That was Report All Suspicious Activity. This one is much more fun and Weenish. Again, I'm going back to Ween because that's just my go-to sometimes. There's a couple bands that I always go to for inspiration, or when I write something, I'll come back to it. I'm like, how's this melody gonna go? This album seems to be going Flaming Lips and Ween and Billy Woods for the rap songs. Not to say I'm as talented as these people. They're the ones leading my inspiration. That's what I mean by that. So this fourth song for Willie the Vegan is called I Don't Trust Nobody Who Don't Eat Garlic. I don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. It's supposed to be a psychedelic, trippy, upbeat, bluesy song. It's, it's hard to write a blues song that hasn't been done before, right? You go to a blues festival, you know what I mean? If you go to a blues festival and just spend all day listening to blues music, it's going to seem like you're listening to the same song over and over again. Like, I'm not saying that's not enjoyable. I love the blues. I always have the debate, would I rather listen to blues all day or jazz music? And it's tough. I don't really know. A couple of years ago, I would say the blues definitely, because I enjoy listening to that blues guitar solo stuff. And David Gilmour is like my favorite guitarist, one of my favorites, and I love that stuff. Blues guitar is just cool. It's very addicting and emotive. Maybe there's no better form of music to just get that feeling out. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the blues. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying it does all kind of sound the same. And if you're a blues band or you're trying to write a blues song, don't get frustrated if it sounds like some other song. That's all I'm trying to say. And actually, the song that I kept thinking of as I was forming the melodies was that John Lee Hooker famous song, A Boom, 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 Boom. You know that one? I think it's just called Boom, 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 right? John Lee Hooker, a classic song. It's probably been used on commercials and stuff. A boom, 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 boom. Not making fun of that song. I love that song. But yeah, the problem with the blues stuff, I don't want to mimic people like that because that's kind of disrespectful, I guess. I don't want to mimic people in any genre. And maybe blues is just such what am I trying to say here? Blues music is such, there has to be an authenticity to it. So I don't really know how to reach that level of emotion that some other people that dealt with stuff like that. That John Lee Hooker, I don't know his story, but if you get a voice like that, you must have gone through some stuff in your life. Everyone has something they could kind of relate to, I guess, but it's tough. I don't want to mimic people with my vocals, basically. Boom, 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 boom. But yeah, that's such a classic blues song. Maybe it was like in a Budweiser commercial or something, because I remember hearing that as a kid and being like, what is this? And so that's kind of what I hear in the mood of this song. But of course, I'm not going to copy that exactly. I want to make it into my own version. I was in a Chili's. I had to Google that, sorry. It's in a Chili's Grill and Bar commercial in 2011. Maybe that's why I remember it. I don't know. A boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I don't know. That kind of sucks. I kind of feel like I heard this song as a kid though, because I didn't know what the blues was as a kid. But I remember that song so much. I thought like that might be the first blues song I ever heard, or maybe that movie Crossroads with man, I forget the guitarist now. Is it Satriani? Remember that movie Crossroads with the Karate Kid? Forget his name. I forget his name. Apologies. Is it Machio? But there's a great movie called Crossroads, and it's still really good. And at the end of it, yeah, Ralph Macchio has to battle. I think it's Satriani. No, I'm wrong. Way off. Steve Vai. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Ralph Macchio has to battle. I think Steve Vai plays a devil or something. They have to do like a famous guitar battle. It's pretty good. Maybe that's why I like blues as a kid. I kind of remember that movie a little bit. I guess that's kind of based on Robert Johnson stuff, according to this Google thing I just pulled up. But yeah, that's worth a watch for any young people who never heard of the movie 1986 movie Crossroads. I believe it was a good soundtrack too. Maybe that Ry Cooder guy. I think he had something to do with it. But whatever, I'm going off track here. But yeah, the blues music, it's hard to create something new in that genre. That's where I was going with this train of thought. But I got sidetracked a couple of times. So I'm trying to make a blues song, upbeat, psychedelic, trippy, in the style of Ween. Ween might have already done this. I can't think of any Ween blues songs off the top of my head, but they probably did. Because they played crazy guitar solos. They could handle that type of music pretty well. Even though they're more of a jam band, they probably have some blues elements in a lot of their guitar stuff. So that's where I'm kind of going with this song. It's a ridiculous concept. And I don't really know why I came up with this. Somebody said that to me one time, don't trust people who don't eat garlic, and it always stuck with me. And I just like that phrase. It makes you think about different things, like people must be vampires or something. But all right, so just to give Ween some credit, go check out these songs as well. Powder Blue. That's not really a blues song though. Powder Blue off the Country album. I'm Holding You. That's from the Country album. That's not very bluesy either. I don't know. But they do bluesy jams, so maybe go check out Ween. I always try to give Ween credit because they're a big influence over me. And yeah, let me just get to the song before I forget it, because I just came up with kind of the melody for the verses. I don't know why or how the song fits into this story. I don't trust nobody. Don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. Who don't eat garlic. I don't know how I'm going to sing that. I don't trust nobody, don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. I guess that kind of works. I don't know, I have to work on that a little. The phrasing's kind of weird. But that's the chorus. It would have like background singers. I don't trust nobody, don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. Yeah, it's stupid. I get it, but I think it's kind of funny. You know, I was just thinking the first blues song I ever heard was probably that movie Adventures in Babysitting. That's really going back. There's a blues song in that the kids sing called like Babysitting Blues or something. Adventures in Babysitting. 1987. So yeah, I'm going back in time to a lot of 80s movies in this song. But that's a pretty good movie, Elizabeth Shue. I watched that not too long ago because it's a lot of nostalgia. I guess back when there was like West Coast Video and Blockbuster Video in the VHS days, that was one that we would always just rent because it's like a family friendly action movie in the 80s. It's pretty good still. And there's a blues song in that, like the Babysitting Blues or something. That's probably my introduction to blues music, if you can call it that. But yeah, there is a blues scene in that movie. I think they go to a blues club or something to hide from the bad people or whatever. But yeah, that's a good bit of nostalgia if you remember that movie. Um, don't get it confused with "Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead." That's a different one from like the '90s, I think. All right, so the blues singer in the movie is Albert Collins. I don't really know who that is actually, but he was known as the master of the Telecaster, so he must be famous. Nobody leaves this place without singing the blues. All right, I'm going off topic again. But yeah, like I said, that's the chorus. I would have to figure out phrasing maybe. I don't trust nobody. Don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. And it's probably fitting that I'm doing this now because I just ate a salad with a bunch of garlic in it. So I kind of have garlic breath. So if the animation side, regarding the animation side of this song, so the last one is with the evil newscaster. Now we go back to Willie the Vegan. He begins a hippie cult with his followers. It's just random people that leave their office jobs and join him by meditating in the middle of highways across the country. And I don't know, some reason I just had that image in my head of people meditating on highways. I don't know why. I always have weird images like that. And yeah, this would be kind of like just a weird scene. People are starting to follow Willie the Vegan like he's some messiah, so he's pretty much like a cult leader at this point. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's just where I'm going with this story. He becomes like a messiah figure or a guru to a lot of people. And he's just mainly good. He's just trying to spread a message of love and stuff. Alright, but I guess this song maybe is kind of a warning against false prophets too, a little bit. And false rip-offs that you see on TV promising eternal happiness or youth. All those stupid commercials that you see, and all those, I don't know, rip-off drugs that promise things that no one can really deliver. So maybe that's where this song's going in terms of lyrics and message. Because, I don't know, I can't give an example, but I remember seeing a Vice News a couple years ago. There was like a real life cult leader, and I want to say, I forget, man. Was it Georgia? Not United States, but in like Eastern Europe. I forget where. Maybe it was in Asia. But this guy was like a messiah, and he was developing a following, and it was so weird. And I always had that conflict in my head: is how do you tell the difference between a cult and a religion? Is it just number of followers? Is there a historical basis and a text to back up whatever? If one of the major religions only had like a couple thousand people, would they be respected? And is it just a popularity concept contest? I go down that sometimes, where I try to discover what makes a difference between a religion and a cult. And it's a little tricky, but you can tell the difference, I guess, pretty easily. But would certain religions look more like a cult if they only had a couple hundred followers or 1,000 followers instead of a billion people or a couple million people? It's a tricky thing to go down. It's interesting experiment, but where was I going with that? This song, I guess it's kind of like that, where people come up from, even if it's not a religious basis, from time to time, there's always people who think they're healers or promising 5-minute abs and stupid stuff like that. Different types of spirituality that people try to capitalize on, the new trendy thing. Recently, I over the winter, well, it's still the winter, but earlier this winter, I did yoga, hot yoga, and I really did like it. It was beneficial. If if I go back to anything, I would try doing that again. That's not really what I'm going on, but I guess there are certain things that happen that are so trendy, and it doesn't really relate to religion sometimes. People are just trying to fill a void with some kind of spirituality or some kind of other element, meditation, or not to say these things are bad or wrong. I'm just saying you have to be careful sometimes with certain certain things that you try to devote your time and energy to. You don't know if it's somebody trying to scam you or not. I always talk about ayahuasca, like I would love to try it. I even have a line in a song, serve ayahuasca at my funeral, because that would be a pretty interesting funeral if everyone was tripping on ayahuasca. But that could be a scam. Maybe it's just really nothing. Just it's a placebo and people think it's going to do something, so your mind makes you believe it's doing something. I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff like that that I think about. But I guess you can really debunk that stuff and actually get to the chemical compounds within ayahuasca or LSD or peyote, ketamine, all that Hamilton Morris stuff. Like you can actually get to the chemical compounds of how to produce these natural, you want to call them remedies, natural medicine. So I guess you can see what it does to your brain, just like what alcohol does to a person's brain or marijuana, peyote, psychedelics. You can see what kind of reaction these things have, and you can study it as a scientist. So I guess you can't prove that stuff. Magic mushrooms, whatever else. Yeah, I'm rambling. I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, this song is supposed to be fun. It's like I said, it's mainly based on John Lee Hooker. A boom, 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 boom. That's the kind of the melody I have in my head a little. Not completely, but maybe a version of that. All right, so I'll sing the verses. This is very loose interpretation of what I'm trying to get out. Because if you're going to make a trippy bluesy song, there'll be lots of echo, there'll be lots of interesting effects on the guitar and vocals, a lot of harmonies and ambient noise to kind of fool people. Like, is this a blues song? What is this? Like, in a way, you want to fool people. You don't want to give people the same old, same old. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish with a lot of my stuff. I would compare it to chefs who bake like cakes that look like hamburgers or something, and they try to fool people. That's always kind of interesting to me. There was an Always Sunny episode where they make a cake out of Frank, or Frank fools everyone. They think he's on his deathbed, but it's really just a cake, a cake that looks like Danny DeVito. It was pretty funny. All right, so this is verse 1. Let me get down to the song before I forget how it goes. Miracles misfire. Citizens conspire. Families revolt. Enemies elope. Don't trust nobody. Don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. Heads bobbled and bowed as the temperance drowns. But inspiration consoles. And desperation recoils. Said I don't trust nobody, don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. That's probably a good place for a solo or something. So you would sing verse 1, then go to the chorus, verse 2, go to the chorus. Probably put a fancy guitar solo there and make it trippy with weird like pedals or effects. Even like a shoegazy element there would be cool. After that, you go to verse 3. I would probably do some kind of modulation here to make the song a little bit more interesting. Go up a step or half a step. Death stumbles, unbound, unknown. Death stumbles, unbound, unknown. Death stumbles, unbound, unknown. I said death go stumble, unbound, unknown. So that's like a really bluesy ending to this song. I don't know, I just thought that was a cool image that I had in my head of death stumbling. Whether that's like death with the like the Norm Macdonald character on Family Guy. Whenever I think of death now, I just think of Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, Norm Macdonald, in Family Guy episodes. Before that, it was probably Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Wasn't there like death following them around and stuff? Whatever. That's kind of an interesting image that I had in my head. Death stumbling, unbound, unknown. So yeah, it gets very bluesy at the end, which makes sense because it's a blues song. I haven't written a lot of blues songs. Like maybe there's elements of blues songs in some of my stuff, but I've never really said, all right, this is going to be a blues song and have like John Lee Hooker in my head or something. But that's where I'm at with this one. I think it's pretty interesting. And the quote, I did pick a quote for this song. If you didn't listen to the last one, I'm trying to end almost every song with a quote for this album. The first song doesn't have one. It's just a story spoken by the narrator, a little bit to add to the story. The second song is a quote from Schopenhauer. The third song was a quote from Guillaume Apollinaire. And this song is James Baldwin. I thought of this idea when I was at the library last week, and because I found a cool James Baldwin quote that just hit me really hard, and I found a cool Guillaume Apollinaire quote. That one also is like almost the thesis of this entire album. The James Baldwin quote, and I forget. Well, I did take a picture of it. I should give credit, right, to the book I found it in. Hold on one second, if I can find it at least. It was an art book of people who maybe went to France, African Americans that moved to France or other places after the war and stuff. I think that's what it was about. All right, maybe I still have it. Yeah. All right, so the book is called Exploration in the City of Light, African American Artist in Paris, 1945 to 1965. And it was a really cool book. I would recommend it. I didn't read the whole thing. Um, the New Lost Generation is the article by James Baldwin. And I did not have time to read the entire article. I just skimmed it. But I think he went to France. I could look this up after, I guess. But maybe he went to France to live for a while. But I think he was just speaking about different treatment of other. And I've heard this before from Miles Davis. Miles Davis, I think he went to France when he was young to do some stuff, music. He did a soundtrack for a film, and he said he was treated so much differently in France than some of the U.S. cities. Well, of course, in the 60s, it probably sucked in a lot of cities in the South and other places. But yeah, I've heard this before. It's an interesting book if you want to check it out. Again, it's called Explorations in the City of Light, African American Artist in Paris, 1945 to 1965. And the quote I picked really hit me. I don't know a lot about James Baldwin. You know, he's a famous name, but I'm not going to pretend that I've read anything by him. I just never really took the time to read him. It's on my to read list, him and like Maya Angelou. And, well, I read a little bit of Dick Gregory, just his food book. You know, like famous African Americans of that generation. I never really read a lot of it. But his quote really hit me. It says, a man, this is James Baldwin speaking, a man is not a man until he is willing and able to accept his own vision of the world, no matter how radically this vision departs from that of others. I just really like that sentiment. Like, it goes back to the individualism, which could be good or bad. Individualism could be looked at as like a selfish way to exist, but it's more about your state of mind. Don't be so quick to be manipulated by other people's vision of what normal is or what success is, what I talked about in the other song before this. Other people will try to put these thoughts in your head for whatever purpose or agenda they have. Sometimes it's good. I'm not saying it's always bad, but you have to be, by a certain age, you have to have that critical thinking going off. Like, why are people telling me this? Why are people pushing me in this direction or spreading this information in my brain? So his quote really hit me. This is James Baldwin's quote. A man is not a man until he is willing and able to accept his own vision of the world, no matter how radically this vision departs from that of others. It's simple, but it's hard to do when you're in a room of people, for example, and everyone thinks a certain way, but you disagree so much, but you're like the only person who disagrees with it. It's hard to speak up because you're going to have 99 people against you. So, yeah, like that movie, what is it? Ah, man. I always think of things in my head, but I forget the titles. You know, the old famous movie about the jury. Is it 12 Angry Men? Yeah, all right. So I thought that's what it was. There's a movie from 1957, very famous, 12 Angry Men, about a jury trial. It's really good. I think it's one of the best scripts ever. Well, I don't know if I read the script, but the whole film is basically like in a courtroom, and it's awesome. Like from 1957, it's so good. Maybe I saw it in high school, and then I watched it a couple years ago, and it still holds up so well. I guess Henry Fonda is the most famous in that. But yeah, that's what it's kind of like. I guess that relates to that. What are your principles? Your principles are easy to follow if you're in a room of people who believe in the same principles. But if you're in a room with people who totally disagree with you, it's hard to live by your principles at that point. I'll also think this makes me think of the. I also use some quotes, or a quote from John Woolman. I might have talked about this a couple weeks ago. I went for a walk and I came across John Woolman, Woolman, Woolman. He was a famous Quaker that lived in Mount Holly, and they have a house museum of where he used to live or work, I guess. So I bought his journal to see what this guy was all about, and it was during the, I guess before or right after the Revolutionary War, or right before it. I don't remember. But he wrote this journal that's very famous. He's one of the most famous Quakers, and he's talking about slavery because at that point New Jersey had, I don't know, 10 to 12,000 slaves. Slavery was still going on, and he's saying how he always felt conflicted because it goes against the Quaker beliefs to own another person like that and treat people like that. And he worked for somebody who was going to buy a slave, and he had to do the paperwork, and he felt so conflicted. I guess that's kind of what that quote means. Like, you have to be able to stand up for your own vision of the world, or it's kind of the same thing. You stand by your principles, or what kind of a man are you, or something like that. And that's good. That's a good way to look at stuff. Like, it's hard to live by that. It's very hard because some people don't have that luxury. If you don't follow along with your government or your whatever, you're either shunned, you're an outcast, or whatever. You're looked upon as what was there, like a caste system in India, like the untouchables or something? I don't know. I remember learning something about that. So yeah, it's tough to live like that. That's very hard. Muhammad Ali, when he went to jail instead of going to Vietnam, people who did stuff like that, you stand by your principles and stuff like that. That's very difficult. Like, how far would you go? Like, Gandhi goes on a hunger strike and stuff like that. Like, there's some crazy stuff, man. Monks who set themselves on fire and just crazy stuff like that. But maybe I'm going a little bit on the exaggerated end of this. But it goes back to what I wanted to get tattooed on my arms, like create your own reality. Create your own reality just means that same thing. Like, don't get persuaded by other people's scripts that they try to write for you, no matter what age you are. Like, there's a difference. You can, sure, it's good to guide the youth, and as a youth, it's good to be guided by religion or morals, anything that preaches good morality. But there's also a limit, a line where things could get a little crazy. I think that's what he's talking about. I'm sure he had to deal with a lot of crazy stuff as an African American dude in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So he's probably coming from a different perspective like that. But it kind of relates to anyone's life. So that's the quote I found. It's James Baldwin, and maybe I'll start reading his stuff since I really got into that one. Just that one quote just made me think for a while about, just like I'm doing now, of what he really means by that. And so this is my blues song on the album. I wasn't sure where I was going to take this song at first because I kept thinking it's a Ween song. It's a Ween song. It's so ridiculous. It's all so ridiculous. I don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. Yeah, I know that's like a double negative, but I just like how it sounds better. I don't trust nobody. Don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. Who don't eat garlic. Who don't eat garlic. Something like that. it would sound better with heavy guitar and maybe background harmonies and stuff. I don't trust nobody, don't trust nobody who don't eat garlic. I don't want to mimic like the prototypical blues voice. I'm going to have, again, I say me, but because I think I'm going to record these songs and I'll be the one singing it, but who knows what it will go, where this song would go in the future. So that's basically everything for this one. I think I rambled long enough. But yeah, there's a lot of things to consider when you write, when you're like, oh, this is a perfect blues song. And that's what went through my head when I returned to look at this one maybe yesterday or the day before. I'm like, this would make a really cool blues song. It's like that John Lee Hooker song. Yeah, that would be awesome. But then I'm also like, well, how am I going to make it sound like John Lee Hooker, but not sound like John Lee Hooker? Because number one, I don't want to copy him. Number two, I don't want to mimic his voice because that's kind of disrespectful. And I don't want to completely rip off any of his riffs or anything. So it's good and bad. Like, I'm openly saying though, like John Lee Hooker's in my head with this song, so I'm not trying to be deceptive or anything. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, you could look at John Lee Hooker, and even him, he'd probably point to some old Blind Willie Johnson, is that his name, or Robert Johnson, or what was the other? There's so many blind guys who were like blues guitarists. I don't know a lot of the old blues guys, like yeah, Muddy Waters, and I love Buddy Guy. I loved his guitar playing; is one of my favorites. There's so many great blues guitarists. Like you still have to put Eric Clapton. Like even though maybe some people kind of lost their faith in him because he was like Clapton is God. Maybe people lost faith in Clapton as a god, but you know you can't deny he's a great guitar player. But even those other people I mentioned, David Gilmour is my favorite guitarist. I just love the way he forms his solos, man. They're just so, they're so like escapist and so powerful and so diminutive. What's that word mean? I think it means something good. David Gilmour solos just make me very jealous. Like I just want to learn how to play like a kind of like the David Rawlings effect. Like I see David Rawlings play solo and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And then I'll try to do it. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Like I spent hours trying to learn David Rawlings stuff to try to play like him, to mimic him. It's just crazy, man. But yeah, David Gilmour might be more accessible. It's just more in the pacing to leave open space and not be crazy technical, but just put your entire soul into it. That's what David Gilmour kind of portrayed to me as a guitar player. David Gilmour is like he's putting his entire life force into this 2-minute, 3-minute solo, and it's just so good. Or on Animals, like the riffs and the solos on Animals is just crazy, man. So yeah, he's just such a gifted guitar player, technically and also just in terms of the emotions that he distributes through his notes. So yeah, I'm not really sure what a guitar solo for this one would be, but that would come later, of course. I'm reminded of I covered Gnarls Barkley Crazy. One of the first songs that I tried to cover for my musical DNA series was Gnarls Barkley Crazy, and I totally interpreted the song differently, kind of a bluesy feel. And later I added a solo to it because I just kept having this solo play in my head. So hopefully I get that same effect for this one. I think there's definitely possibilities for dueling guitars or some kind of weird bluesy mix of the usual 12 bar blues or whatever you want to call it and psychedelic stuff. Because I think there's always been a combination of that. Other bands in the 60s and 70s often tried to merge blues and psychedelia. And it's usually pretty good. It goes together pretty well. Jimi Hendrix even. But that's all. I'm rambling, and maybe I'll try to make a list of psychedelic blues songs if I can really study that in the next hour or so, because I don't feel like spending too much time on it. But maybe I could Google what are some of the best psychedelic blues songs and make a short 10-song playlist. I can't really think of anything right now, but there's probably Grateful Dead stuff and I don't know, other stuff I'm not thinking of. Because I'm not the most knowledgeable about psychedelic stuff. If I really want to learn, I'll keep listening to. If you ever heard of Noble Records, it's a record label in North Carolina. I think Charlotte. Go check out their YouTube channel. The owner just has a crazy extensive knowledge of psychedelic rock, and he's always giving recommendations of underground, garage rock, psychedelic rock, and stuff. I think he's the one that, I think his name's Dylan, but apologies, I forget his name. But go check out Noble Records, Noble Records on YouTube, or just Google it. It's a pretty good vinyl channel. He owns a vinyl record store in North Carolina. What was I talking about? Yeah, it's maybe I'll try to come up with a playlist, do a little bit of research on maybe Flaming Lips or other bands that mix blues and psychedelic rock. I guess you could even go to Doors. Like recently, somebody mentioned how the Doors guitar playing is just so underrated. Robbie Krieger, is that his name? I agree with that. I'm a fan of Jim Morrison, his voice. I think his vocals and lyrics are cool. But yeah, the music, if the Doors didn't have any words and lyrics, that they would still be just a great band to listen to. I think they kind of inspired a lot of stuff after that. Well, of course, they kind of mixed all that blues and psychedelic rock stuff. So yeah, I'll try to find some cool psychedelic bluesy songs and put a playlist together and share it. But that's all. I guess that's everything I really wanted to get out for this one. Hopefully, this song could get made one day, and it will be looked at as a respectful way of approaching a blues song from somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with that. Because I'm not trying to mimic anyone in any genre, hip hop, punk. Like I always say who my influences are, but I don't think I'll ever be able to do like a Jello Biafra or Henry Rollins thing. I'll just have to find my own voice eventually. If I do any of this stuff, it's something I don't really think about too much because I haven't been able to ever really try doing it yet. Where I record a song like, and become somebody else, like David Bowie, becoming a different character, a different persona with so many different albums. I've never really attempted to do any of that in like a real under pressure type of situation. I've tried, yeah, many times recording stuff myself onto my phone or trying to record demos, but yeah, it's tough to do when you don't really know what you're doing. In terms of not having the right equipment and you're just trying to sing and play guitar at the same time into a crappy microphone and trying to make it sound good. And yeah, sometimes it can sound listenable, but not very professionally done at least. But that's it. I'm just rambling crazy now, so that's all. Hopefully this song, more than anything, I would like to record this song, I think, just because it could be like a radio hit. I believe that because it is kind of accessible to blues people, to fans of psychedelia and Ween and stuff like that, absurd stuff. It could be pretty a wide demographic who would appreciate a song like this. But again, there's a lot of songs I say this about. And all right, that's all.